John William Johnny Carson was an American television host, comedian, writer, producer, actor, and musician. Best known for his 30 years as host of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. Carson received 6 Emmy Awards, the Governor's Award, and a 1985 Peabody Award. He was inducted into the Television Academy Hall of Fame in 1987. Johnny Carson was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1992 and received a Kennedy Center honor in 1993, although his show was already successful by the end of the 1960s. During the 1970s, Carson became an American icon and remained so even after his retirement in 1992. He adopted a casual, conversational approach with extensive interaction with guests, an approach pioneered by Arthur Godfrey and previous Tonight Show hosts Steve Allen and Jack Paar. Former late-night host and friend, David Letterman, cited Carson's influence. Early life and career. Carson was born on October 23, 1925 in Corning, Iowa, to Homer Lloyd Kit Carson, a power company manager, and Ruth Carson, who was of Irish descent. He grew up in the nearby towns of Avoca, Clarinda, and Red Oak in southwest Iowa before moving to Norfolk, Nebraska, at the age of 8. It was there that Carson grew up and began developing his talent for entertaining. At the age of 12, Carson found a book on magic at a friend's house and immediately purchased a mail-order magician's kit. After the purchase of the kit, Johnny Carson practiced his entertainment skills on family members with card tricks. He was known for following his family members around saying, "Pick a card, any card." Carson's mother sewed him a cape, and his first performance was staged right in front of the local Kiwanis Club. He debuted as The Great Carsoner at age 14 and he was paid $3 a show. Soon, many other performances at local picnics and country fairs followed. After graduating from high school, Carson had his first encounter with Hollywood. Carson hitchhiked to Hollywood, where he was arrested and fined $50 for impersonating a midshipman, a story that's often seen as apocryphal. Johnny embarked on an adventure, one so laden with implications about his future, that some have wondered if the escapade might not actually be a legend. Military career. Carson joined the Naval Air Corps on June 8, 1943, received V-12 officer training at Columbia University and Millsaps College. Commissioned an ensign late in the war, Carson was assigned to the US Pennsylvania in the Pacific. While in the Navy, Carson posted a 10-0 amateur boxing record, with most of his bouts fought on board the US Pennsylvania. He was en route to the combat zone aboard a troop ship when the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki ended the war. Carson served as a communications officer in charge of decoding encrypted messages. He said that the high point of his military career was performing a magic trick for United States Secretary of the Navy James V. Forrestal. In a conversation with James Forrestal, the Secretary of the Navy asked Carson if he planned to stay in the Navy after the war. In response, Carson said no and told him he wanted to be a magician. Forrestal asked him to perform, and Carson responded with a card trick. Carson made the discovery that he could entertain and amuse someone as cranky and sophisticated as Forrestal. After the Navy and education. To take advantage of the educational opportunities from the Navy, Carson attended the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, where he joined the fraternity of Phi Gamma Delta and continued performing magic. He majored in journalism with the intent of becoming a comedy writer, but switched his major to speech and drama a few months later because he wanted to become a radio performer. Carson's college thesis titled, How to Write Comedian Jokes, was a compilation of tape skits and jokes from popular radio shows with Carson, explaining the comedic technique in a voiceover. It allowed him to graduate in 3 years. Carson graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in radio and speech with a minor in physics in 1949. Early radio and television. He began his broadcasting career in 1950 at WOW Radio and Television in Omaha, Nebraska. Carson soon hosted a morning television program called The Squirrel's Nest. One of his routines involved interviewing pigeons on the roof of the local courthouse that would allegedly report on the political corruption they had seen. Carson supplemented his income by serving as master of ceremonies at local church dinners, attended by some of the same politicians and civic leaders that he had lampooned on the radio. The wife of one of the Omaha political figures Carson spoofed owned stock in a radio station in Los Angeles, and in 1951 referred Carson to her brother, who was influential in the emerging television market in Southern California. Carson joined CBS-owned Los Angeles television station KNXT. In 1953, comic Red Skelton, a fan of Carson's cult success, low-budget sketch comedy show, Carson's Cellar on KNXT, asked Carson to join his show as a writer. In 1954, Skelton during rehearsal accidentally knocked himself unconscious an hour before his live show began, and Carson successfully filled in for him. In 1955, Jack Benny invited Carson to appear on one of his programs during the opening and closing segments. Carson imitated Benny and claimed that Benny had copied his gestures. Benny, however, predicted that Carson would have a successful career as a comedian. Carson hosted several shows besides Carson's Cellar, including the game show Earn Your Vacation and the CBS variety show The Johnny Carson Show. He was a guest panelist on the original To Tell the Truth starting in 1960, later becoming a regular panelist from 1961 until 1962. After the prime-time The Johnny Carson Show failed, he moved to New York City to host Who Do You Trust?, formerly known as Do You Trust Your Wife? In 1958 he appeared as a guest star in an episode entitled Do You Trust Your Wife? On NBC's short-lived variety show, The Polly Bergen Show. It was on Who Do You Trust? That Carson met his future sidekick and straight man, Ed McMahon. Although he believed moving to daytime would hurt his career, Who Do You Trust? Was a success. It was the first show where he could ad-lib and interview guests, and because of Carson's on-camera wit, the show became the hottest item on daytime television during his 5 years at ABC.